The Tale of Peter Rabbit is a children's book written and illustrated by Beatrix Potter that followed mischievous and disobedient young Peter Rabbit as he gets into and is chased around the garden of Mr. McGregor. He escapes and returns home to his mother, who puts him into the bed after offering a chamomile tea. Once upon a time, in the woods, near a small village, lived 4 little rabbits. Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter were their names. The 4 little rabbits lived with their mother. They lived under the root of the giant fir tree in the sandbank. One day, when Mother Rabbit was going to the baker's, she told her children to go out and play. "Now, my little ones," she said, "you may go down the lane and play. But be very careful and don't go to Mr. McGregor's garden." Mother Rabbit sighed and sadly continued, "You all know that your father had an accident there, don't you know? You remember that he was put into a pie by Mr. McGregor." Mother Rabbit warned her little ones and set off with her basket and umbrella. "1 loaf of fresh bread and 5 currant buns," she told the baker. Meanwhile, the little rabbits went out to play. Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail were good rabbits. They obeyed their mother and went down the lane as she had told them. There they gathered blueberries. Peter was a naughty rabbit. He was determined to go to McGregor's garden. He decided to go alone, so he left his brothers and went to the garden on his own. When he reached the garden, he squeezed himself into a hole into the gate. The garden was huge and was overflowing with vegetables. First he ate some lettuce, and after that he ate fresh beans, and after that he feasted on some radishes. After eating all of these, his stomach was quite full and he felt sick. "Now I shall look for some parsley," he thought. He looked around the garden for some parsley. By the end of the cucumber patch, Peter ran into McGregor. Mr. McGregor was planting cabbages when he saw Peter. "Thief!" he called out. "Stop, you thief!" He ran after the Peter. Peter was now trembling with fear. He hopped around the garden, and the poor bunny had forgotten the way back to the gate. In a hurry, he bounced from one patch to another. He lost one of his shoes to the cabbages, and the other he lost among the potatoes. After losing both of his shoes, Peter ran faster using all his paws. And he was so busy avoiding Mr. McGregor that he forgot to look ahead and ran into a gooseberry net. Peter was caught by the large buttons of his blue coat. He struggled and struggled, but could not free himself. "Mr. McGregor will surely catch me now," Peter started crying. Peter's cry were overheard by some sparrows nearby. They came to Peter and found him stuck in the net. "Don't give up, little rabbit. Push yourself. We are sure you'll be able to break free." And so Peter struggled. He saw McGregor coming towards him. Mr. McGregor had a stiff. He wanted to strap little Peter. Peter wriggled out just in time and ran off, leaving the blue jacket behind. Peter saw a tool shed ahead. Without giving a second thought, he rushed into the tool shed and he jumped into a can. Once inside, Peter realized it has been a mistake to pop into the can. The can was filled with water. He was drenched and shivering. Soon Mr. McGregor entered the tool shed, and he knew the rabbit was inside the tool shed somewhere. So Mr. McGregor carefully turned the flowers and the pots in the shed, looking for Peter. Peter was cold inside the pot, and he sneezed loudly. The sneeze gave away Peter's hiding spot. Mr. McGregor was after him in no time. Mr. McGregor tried to put his foot on Peter, but Peter jumped out of the window and ran away. Peter sat down to rest for a moment. He was tired and he was frightened and he was very damp from sitting on the can. After resting, Peter began to walk around the garden. He didn't go fast. He was trying to find out a way out of the garden before McGregor found him. Peter found a door, but it was locked. He looked around and saw a fat little mouse scuttling with some peas. "Do you know the way to the gate?" he asked the mouse. But the mouse had a large pea stuck in her mouth. She could not answer. She shook her head. Peter began to cry. Peter wandered around looking for the gate. The more he wandered around, the more confused he became. He came to a pond with goldfishes. A cat sat ready to pounce on the fish. Peter didn't bother them. He had heard about the cats from one of his cousins. Peter heard a strange noise. He went under the bushes and looked but found nothing. Then he climbed upon a wheelbarrow and saw Mr. McGregor hoeing onions. Mr. McGregor's back turned towards the Peter and beyond him was the gate. And now Peter carefully climbed off the wheelbarrow and made a run for the gate. He ran as fast as his legs could carry him on the straight path behind the black currant bushes. Mr. McGregor saw the rabbit and called after it. Peter did not care, and he did not look back. He ran furiously. His eyes were set on the gate. At last, Peter slipped underneath the gate and ran off into the woods to safety. Mr. McGregor hung Peter's coat and shoes on the pole as a scarecrow. Peter did not stop running until he got to the big fig tree. Peter was extremely tired. He flopped down on the soft sand of the rabbit hole and fell asleep. Mother Rabbit was busy cooking. "I wonder what he has done with the jacket. This is the second time he has lost," she thought. Peter became very sick in the evening. His mother put Peter to bed with some tea and gave him some medicine, whereas his other brothers, Flopsy, Mopsy and Cottontail, has delicious breads, blueberries and milk for the supper.